Hello everyone, I am JS, your online instructor for this video tutorial series, Programming in Java. In the last video, we had the demonstration on installation of Java, and we also made a program to understand the basic syntax. Now in today's video, we will learn about the data types. Programming is all about dealing with the data, and Java is very strict about the data types. It will ask you to define every expression with a type. It will ask you to define every variable with a type. So we have to understand all these data types. Basically, the data types are divided into two parts, the primitive and the derived. So when I talk about the primitive data types, we can have a look on the integer type of primitive data type. So here comes the integer, and in the integer you have different type of the data. So let's say I want to save the value for a person age. So that would be maximum, you can say 100 years, 110, 120. You won't find a person with the age of 40, 50, 60,000 years, right? So we can have a very small variable which can consume less memory. So for this, I can take a variable like short. But let's say if you want to save some value which is lesser than this, maybe I want to save a simple bit of value, that is 1 or 0. So I can take simple value in the variable of the type byte. So why I am making a classification of these different variables type? Because the memory is important part of your program. You should consume as less memory as you can. So the byte takes only 1 byte of the memory, right? And short takes the 2 byte of memory. So that we will discuss later. And let me discuss the next two. Another one is int and the last one is long. So we have 4 type of integer type in the Java, that is byte, short, int and long. So you can save only whole valued signed numbers. So that would be negative and positive, but they should be the whole numbers. You cannot store the decimal values in these variables. Next, we will come to the floating. So when I talk about the floating numbers, that is the decimal. So in the decimal, we have 2 type of the data types, that is float and another one is double. Okay. So in the float, you can save some decimal values like 2.3, and double again you can save some larger decimal values, right? So they have some range of the values. Next primitive data type, I have the characters. Now in the character, I can store a single character. When I say the char, means I can save only one single character, right? And similarly, you have a Boolean. So the Boolean data type, you can only store the value like true or false. So unlike C++, in Java, Boolean stores a true or false value. So it is a literal true, right? But if you remember C++, there it is stored 1 and 0. So let's have a quick overview of byte, short, int and long in the term of memory and the range. So when I talk about the byte, it takes 1 byte of the memory, that is 8 bits. I'll write it over here. Right, and then I have the short. Short takes 16 bit, or I should say 2 bytes. Int takes 4 bytes, and long, it consumes 8 bytes of memory. So if you have to store up a value like the age, so you can store it well in byte also, because the range of the byte variable is minus 128 to 127, right? So if you think that school management system where the student's age is obviously not going to be larger than 25 years, so you can store the age of all the students in a byte type of variable. Then you have the short, int, long, and short takes the range of minus 32,768 to 32,767. And beyond this, if I talk about int and long, they have quite big value, big range, and you need not worry to remember or just cram it. So it is all, if you want to take a larger value, you can take int, and if it is very long, you can take the long data type. Now let's come to the floating and float and double. Now why we have two different data types for the decimal? Again, it is smaller value goes to the float and larger value goes to the double. But remember, whenever you are going to write a decimal value in Java, it is by default a double value. So in that case, you have to put some magic to tell Java that no, the value which you are writing is a small value and it should go to a float type variable. It should consume less memory, right? So that magic I'll show you in some time, and then I'll come to the character. So whenever I'm going to store a value inside the character, that will be a single character, whether you're going to store a C and you put a single quotes to mention it as a character, right? Remember, if you write it in the double quotes, that becomes a string. It becomes a series of or group of characters, though you are writing only one, but it will understand it as a group of characters. So don't write this double quotes. Always your character should be mentioned inside a single quote symbol. Okay, as I told, Boolean is going to take the true and the false value. All right, now we will write a small program to declare certain variables and see what tips and tricks I can share with you guys, and what is the precaution you should keep while writing up the programs with the variables. Right, now at times the people who are new to programming, they may be thinking of that, why should we write up all these data types? Because programming is always done to write a solution. Your software is a solution to a problem. Okay, so in that case, I should be aware that what input I am taking from the client and what output I should give him. So let's say, again, I take the example of calculator. If the person is entering two numbers, say one is int and the another one is decimal, so what type of value should I return him? So if the person requires the precise value up to 2 decimal places, obviously you are going to return the decimal values. But say if the output should be in the whole numbers, that means your float value will be also converted to a whole number. I mean, the decimal values will be converted into the whole number, and then you are going to return it, right? So let's write up a small program to understand this whole thing. So let me save this file by writing up a class. So whenever you're going to write the class, as we discussed earlier, that class should be named, started with a class keyword. This is your keyword, and we will write some name for the class. So I'll say data type demo. Okay, so this is my class, and let me save this. I'll save it in the Java folder. And we also discussed one point, that the class name and your file name should be same. So that will save you with a lot of problems, and that problems we will discuss later in our course. So I'll write this file with the name datatypedemo.java. Save it. Now, since I'm using up Notepad++, so as soon as I save this file as .java, so it is recognizing the syntax, and you can see the class keyword is highlighted in blue color. Okay, so we'll write another thing, that is main method, because without main method your program won't work. Public static void main, and I'll write an arguments over here. Okay, so save this. Now this was what we studied in the last session, and also one more thing that we studied was system.out.println, that is going to show some value to the client, any output you want to show to the client. So let's say I write up over here that, because I have to display a message, so I'll display it with the double quotes. So this is my basic program. We have already studied in the first video. Now I want to declare up a variable. So let's say if I am taking up a int type of variable, and the value should be assigned with, let's say 70. Sorry. So the 70 values to be assigned, but something is missing over here. What is missing? You have declared up a value, you have declared the type of the value, but remember the memory is something which is very complex and you cannot remember the address where this value 70 is going to get stored. So you have to take the help of your programming, that I want to store this value 70 and I want to retrieve it back. So instead of remembering the address of this value 70, what you will do is you will give a name to that memory location. Okay, so I'll give the name as var, or I can say num. So I have declared up a variable. This num is a variable because the value of num can be changed. You can add certain number to this num and then later on increase it by adding some more numbers, or you can decrease it by subtracting some value from this num. So I have declared up a num variable of the type int, and the value which I am initializing, the default value is 70. So when I say default value, it is not the value which will be created at the time of initialization. No, I'll discuss that point later in this video or the next one, which is very detailed one. So here I am creating up a variable of the type int named as num and initializing it with the value 70. So that means this 70 is stored inside num. And if I want to display this value, I need not bother about the address where this is going to be stored. I'll straightly write the value num. Okay, so here you can see int num is equal to 70. 70 is getting assigned to the variable num, and then I am accessing it back. So I'll save this. Now let's open up the command prompt and check if the path is set or not. So let me check where the program is stored. The program is stored in G drive. So we will go to the G drive and check for the program. Now initially I'm using up Notepad, right? Later on we will move towards IDE. We will use Eclipse or NetBeans. The motive of using Notepad currently is that it will help you to remember the syntax, because Eclipse and NetBeans IDE, they give you the syntax. A lot of program is pre-built, so that will not help you to remember the code, right? I have seen students who start writing up the code on Eclipse and later on they do not even remember that whether the public static void, the static void comes earlier or the void. So this is very important to remember the syntax. Okay, so my program is saved. Let me see if Java path is saved or not. Java C. Okay, it is taking some time. That means the Java path is set in the environment variables. Now I'll compile this Java C data type demo.java. So when I'm compiling up my program, right, I have to give the full name along with the extension of the file. And here the compilation starts. When the program is getting compiled, after compilation, the program is converted to byte code, and then you have to interpret it using Java command again. So here, now what should I write? Data type demo or something else? I'll write the name of the class which contains the main method, and that is data type demo. So if we execute this, it will print me the value hello, and then it will print me the value num, that is 70. Okay, now see, this was very simple. Now let me take some magic over here. If I try to put a character inside the num variable, but I have declared it as int, so what is going to happen? Compile it up. Whether it gives you an error? No. Now see the output, it's 65. Now let me explain this thing to you. This is a character, and character memory is going to be 2 bytes, right? But your int variable takes 4 bytes. That means the value which you are storing is lesser than the memory available. So it is not giving you any error. Second, when it is getting stored, it is converting its value into the ASCII code. I hope you all may have studied up ASCII codes. Right, so this value is getting converted to the ASCII code, which is 65 for uppercase A. Now if I do the reverse of this thing, let me put a comment to these two statements and let me declare up a char variable. So what I do, I say character ch, so it's char, and if I say character, remember it will be a separate class, so I always follow this, that the variable ch is of type char. Now let me print this system.out.println. Okay, so if I just go and compile this program again and run this, so you can see the output is hello, which is in line number 4, and the character A is printed, which is line number 8. But if I try to change this value, let me try to put the ASCII value for A. So will this 65 get saved inside this ch, and then it is going to print it as uppercase A or not? So see what happens. 1. So here you find that the value is saved and then it is converted to letter A. Now if I make a small change over here, let's put it 65, remove the comments, and now I will remove this 65 and in its place I'll write the variable num. That means I have initialized a variable of the type int named num with the value 65, and then I'm initializing my character ch, char variable ch, with the num variable. So what is going to happen over here? Will this be okay? It will compile or it will give me an error. Let's check it out. And here you can see it gives me an error, incompatible types. That means it is showing that possible lossy conversion from int to char. Now what is the problem? Earlier, if I gave the 65 in the place of num, it converted to A. But now if I am storing that 65 into the type num, into the type int, and then trying to save it inside the char, it is giving me an error. Because remember, int is taking up a value of 4 byte. And your char is taking up the value of 2 byte. So that means a higher memory value is trying to be stored in the lower memory value, right? So that is giving you an error. But Java gives you some facility that if you want to do this, you can tell Java that no, I want to convert this value into the char and then I want to store it inside the char type variable. So now if you go and compile, so it's working. Let's print it out. And here you can see this 65 is for int, that is printed in line number 6, and this value A is inside line number 9. Right. So this was a small program where we have created up some variable and stored the value and tried to print it out. In the next video, I'll show you the floating type of values, the decimal values which will be stored inside the float and the double variable, and I'll show you some tips and tricks there also. Till then, thank you, bye.